Greetings, everybody. This is Christopher Messina, wherever I am, coming at you from the Messy Time Studios on the beautiful beaches of the last free state in America, Florida, although that status is soon to be shared by all the states because of the marvelous event we just had. Joining me in the studios once again is William Stroock, author, historian, acclaimed man about town. Welcome to the show. Have you stopped dancing since Wednesday night?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you. Let me just first say I am on from my election night bunker in my basement. This is where I sat.
Excellent.
And the other thing is I went back and I watched our conversation last week, and the
Mm.
whole time you can see me doing the the Curb Your Enthusiasm meme, like, like
Yeah. You might want to shift your camera slightly. You're getting a lot of back glow from that light up. Ah, there you go.
how's that?
Perfect. So good.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, but I think we were spot on. That fundamentally, you know, if it had been DeSantis at the top of the ticket, I think it would have been 80-20. And it was only this close because so many people hate Trump,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But enough people were tired of just the extreme bouts of nonsense. 97 genders. Jimmy decides he's Jane so he can win a gold medal and take it from a girl's worked hard her whole career. Like
Yeah.
just all that, and they try to poo-poo it, but it's all a package. All this Marxist crap to try
Yeah.
to get you to agree to shit that you know is nonsense. And luckily the people just ignored it. And he won the popular vote too. So they
Yeah.
can't have their usual whine about, well, if it were run right, he wouldn't be anything, they lost. Leftism lost. And I love watching the hysterical tears of Joy Reid and all the other idiots who just clearly think 70 million Americans are stupid. We're stupid, deplorable garbage. But you know what? The stupid, deplorable garbage won, Joy. So bye.
Yes. Yes, we did. And I will figure out this camera angle eventually, I swear. Uh, so yeah, I'm not quite sure where to begin, to be honest with you.
Well, maybe it's the medical attention I need because my cheeks hurt so much from smiling for days.
Yeah.
Maybe we all need Botox to relax the tension in our cheeks.
Yeah, that's a good start. All right. I think this one's
Like,
over.
perfect. That looks great.
All
So,
right.
yeah.
So, you know, I attempted to do what I always attempt to do on election night and not to pay attention. And I managed to tune out from about 7 to 9. About 8:30, a friend messages me saying, things are going pretty well. Looks pretty good. I'm like, oh God, don't tell me anything. About 9 o'clock, I finally cave. I'm sitting there like a smoker trying to quit because
Exactly.
you know how
One more
good
minute. One more
that
minute.
cigarette's going to be. I mean, you just know it's going to be zen. And at 9 o'clock, I finally just say, hell with it. And I start going through the Twitter accounts that I've been following
Yep.
for politics. And I'm like, this looks pretty good so far. Like people are posting the New York Times needle. I'm like, hey, it's over slightly to the right, the states and everything. And then it just started snowballing. The numbers kept getting better. I'm not used to seeing that in the last really 6 years.
Yep.
And no, I think North Carolina fell. And then all of a sudden the needle really started to get going. And
Yep.
it was 10:30. And you're from the New York metro area originally, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
Where
so
my
I'm going to say
sins.
something you'll recognize. A lot of
Yes.
other people might not. But about 10:30, I messaged a friend of mine and said, "It's time to believe." Right?
There
For
you
those
go.
who don't know, that's the '73 New York Mets,
Yes.
who the sad sack team managed to make it to the World Series. And I just messaged
Yep.
him, "It's time
Time to
to
believe.
believe."
Yep. I knew my time to believe was because I was watching reruns of Bones.
Mhm.
I left my laptop off and I kept getting up every like 40 minutes to check the Wall Street Journal map. And it was and when I saw because Pennsylvania had been light blue, like it was leaning blue,
Yeah.
blue, then it went red. And I was like, that's it. We're done. Like because once you had Pennsylvania is going to go red, Georgia was already red on their map, right? So not definitive locked in, but it was shaded where it was leaning, and then when they called it, then they made it solid, right? So the numbers were kept going, but when she was at like 53 votes and he was at like 160 or something,
Yeah.
I was just like, this is
Uh,
over.
yeah, at 10, yeah, I mean, at 10:30 it's like that nervous energy when you're watching a football game or something. You realize my team's driving. I think we can win this thing. We just
Yeah.
have to finish it. I don't
Stay
remember
in
what time
line,
they
don't leave, keep voting.
Yeah, I don't remember at what time they called Pennsylvania, but when they did that, it was over, obviously.
Yeah.
And I just tried to stay up as long as I could because I didn't want to lose that feeling. And I come back to this a lot when I write about this stuff, the 2004 following the election because that's really the last time we really won it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
didn't, and I took it for granted. I was
Right.
old enough to know better. I was 31 years
Yeah.
old,
Don't take
old
shit for
enough to know
granted.
better. And it's really been 20 years.
Years. Yep.
And I guess I was up to about three, and then just in this daze, and honestly, a little emotional.
I
Uh,
was so happy. I actually decided if I saw the numbers, I went to bed at 12, about 1 a.m. And then God or my dog woke me up at 3:40, and I got up and I went and I checked the map, and then it was Trump. I think it was at 265
yeah,
out of 270, and everything else was red. And she was still screwed after winning California, and I was just dancing on air
yeah,
because they it. So aside from all that fun, I want to touch on something else. Did you watch her concession speech?
yeah, yeah.
Here was my impression. I'm curious yours. Don't let this bias you. If I were a foreigner or an alien, or I had no idea who she was or what this was about, right? I first off would not have thought she had just run for president and lost. I would have thought she was a high school senior valedictorian cheerleader prom queen who was doing her last school musical and bowing before she went to Harvard in the fall. Like there was
Yeah,
no sense at all that she personally was upset by this.
yeah.
It was it was weird. There was no affect at all that this mattered to her. It was really strange the way I read it. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, she's so odd. It's like I don't know what to make of her. It's sort of like, and I guess we could move on to this. You look at Obama, right? And I didn't care about his character or background when he was in. And then it was after he was out that I started talking about, the strange case of Barack Obama.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, you a weird guy.
Barry Hussein Soetoro. I don't
Yeah,
know why commies need to change their names to run for office in America.
yeah. Like Bill de Blasio.
Bill de Blasio,
Um,
Warren Wilhelm Jr.
but
How did Warren Wilhelm Jr. become Bill de Blasio? I
I,
just
I,
love him.
I don't know. It wasn't all that, and it was late in life too. It
Yeah,
was weird.
really weird.
Um,
But
but so I still don't know what to make of Kamala Harris. Speaking of speeches, I mean, Joe Biden hasn't looked that good or sounded that
he
good
is
since he
he is
took
over
office.
the moon with
He's
joy.
so delighted. I
He
could
is
get that smile.
he is such a battler, right? So
Yeah,
he's old and senile, but he let these assholes push him out of the top
yeah,
slot. And he was campaigning for her basically the last few weeks. He'd make
yeah,
some comment slip. He deliberately like, I know, I'm gonna call the deplorables garbage. That's
yeah.
gonna be awesome. It's gonna piss a lot of people off.
I'm wondering if I underestimated the man. He's thrilled. It's like
Of course he is.
I'm gonna go back to Wilmington.
Yeah,
I'm
he's
just
thrilled.
waiting for summer to come down, go down to Rehoboth,
Yeah, hang out.
Delaware at all.
He's all
And this is
done.
gonna be great. He's so happy.
He's so happy
Um,
because there's a part of Joe left. He's an old school battler. He did not grow up with
yeah,
these woke flakes, these
yeah,
Marxist assholes, right? And yeah, and Dr. Jill, Dr.
yeah,
Jill never forgave Cackles for
yeah,
calling her husband racist on the primary debate
yeah,
stage. Never forgave him for it, and rightly
yeah,
so. It's funny that I'm suddenly with Jill Biden on something, but there you go. Um, yeah, and she just it was her performance on the campaign was weird. They tapped her because that's the only way they could use all the money they'd raised for Joe's war chest. Otherwise, they were back to zero. But like, are there any adults left in the room at the DNC? Any? I mean,
Yeah.
all of it. And the last pitch was to violate federal election law by standing in front of the vice presidential residence and having a press conference to tell the world that Trump is Hitler because some guy that Trump spurned said so. That was their last pitch. Some guy that Trump fired says he's a Nazi.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess I'll change my vote.
Well, they believed their own PR and they thought they were cruising to victory.
Yeah, oddly.
I mean, speaking of, we talked about this last week at this slew of polls that showed basically the result we have. And the thing is, I didn't 100%, and we know him, I didn't 100% trust, Rasmussen and Atlas and Echelon and Emerson.
Right.
Just because like, these are a lot of the guys that were telling us about a red wave in 2022.
Yep.
And guess what? And Rasmussen had the big miss in 2012. Guess what? They were all right. And the
Yeah.
eternal question has been answered. They 3 elections now. They still can't talk to Trump voters. They still don't know how to pull. CNN and Gallup and the rest, they just don't know how to do it.
No. No. And what I found funny talking to a lot of people over the last few days is that everyone's got flaws. Trump wasn't my choice. First, if he's 78, I'm tired of the boomers, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think he should have been the candidate. I'm glad that we won,
Me neither.
and a lot of the people around him are going to do great things. I think Vance is set up. We're set up for a good 12 years of Republican governance if we do this right.
That's the key.
Um, I was teasing my son last night. I'm like, it was great, Trump Vance, then Vance Messina. It's going to be fantastic. He's like, don't you dare run for fucking president. So really, trust me, I won't. Your mother will leave me. But and who would want it? But it's set up well, and what I'm still just blown away by is the arrogance and disrespect and contempt. I promised I'd talk about them once because we won, but I highlighted Jimmy Kimmel's monologue in my Substack, and I'm like, this is the last time I'm talking about them because they lost. I don't care
Yeah,
anymore. But they had to highlight the arrogance and the presumption where he says, well, this is a bad night for women, children, and immigrants. I don't know why it was a bad night for any of them, but okay, but that's what you believe.
yeah,
It was a bad night. And it was a bad night for all those who voted for him, too. You just don't know it yet. What an asshole.
yeah,
Bite me. Bite me, talk show host. Thank
yeah,
you. I'm good. Thank you
yeah,
for telling. Not only can you not lose graciously, not only can you not say Donald Trump himself is a Hitlerian nightmare in your fevered fantasies. But no, all the 72 million people who voted for him are too stupid, and we voted against our interests. That encapsulates the arrogance of the left to a T.
yeah. I mean, you watch that, and you can call him, mid all you want, but Jay Leno, who is legitimately funny and a
Yes.
fascinating man, if you watch him on Rogan or any other
Yeah. I
interviews,
love his car
really,
show. It's the greatest.
yeah,
He's got the greatest collection in the
yeah,
universe.
and really understands comedy.
Yeah.
He'd tell a few jokes at Trump's expense or Trump voters' expense,
Was he
but
supposed to?
that's his job.
Yes, it's his job.
But these people, they're not funny.
They're not funny, and they've gotten more and more strident. And they should all,
Yeah,
before by their agents and producers, they should all be forced to watch the clip of Michael Jordan years ago when he was the top of his
yeah,
game in the Bulls, and someone asked him a political opinion, and he responded, "Republicans buy sneakers too."
yeah. Oh, I know that one. Yeah,
Not saying a word. First,
yeah.
first off,
So
I'm a basketball player. Thank you for asking my opinion
yeah,
about politics. But second, if you're in the entertainment business, shut up. I'm
yeah,
not in the entertainment business. I'm in the demagoguery business. So I've got a point of view. But if you are here to amuse people, tell some jokes, asshole.
yeah.
Right?
I mean, just in my novels, I mean, they get a little political, but with the exception of one story I wrote once, they don't take shots at the other side. I, I, I don't want to do that. I don't care. The great John Nolte, at Breitbart, rest his soul, said, the sucker punch. You just want to watch a movie, and the Hollywood, sucker punches you.
Yeah,
Why be that way? And by the way, you remember, Breitbart, Andrew Breitbart in 2009 in the wreckage after the 2008 election, he
right.
started talking to us about Alinsky's rules. And
Yeah,
boy, are we Alinskying them now with the election. Nope.
yep,
Nope. It's free and fair, and you have to accept that you're going to live up to your own rules. It doesn't
that's
matter
right.
about
You were
2020.
all barking about, will you
Yep.
swear to accept the results? Well, I don't know, will you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Now, the
Yeah.
magnitude of the victory probably kills any effort to to
They're still screwing around out in California and elsewhere. Now they're trying to fight to steal the House, right? So that they're still
doesn't
counting
look like they're
votes.
gonna. I mean, like
I know, but
yeah,
this is their only shot
yeah,
to keep the House out of Republican control because what we need to do now, the one thing I'll give the Democrats is they are lockstep, command driven, do it. When
yeah,
they get the opportunity, a flood of liberal wet dreams comes pouring into legislation and they vote to make it happen, right?
yeah,
All of it. Dodd-Frank, Obamacare, all this crap happened when they had the House, the Senate, and the pen. And everyone got in line, and everyone said yes.
yeah,
And the Republicans, when faced with the same options, will be like, well, three of us have a philosophical opposition. Oh my God, vote yes.
yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, John McCain kills the Obamacare repeal.
Yeah. What
I
an
will
asshole.
never forgive that man
Nope.
down there for that.
Yep. Absolutely. And just the Obamacare was an a priori terrible law,
Yeah,
and McCain was an idiot because at least Democrats know grab it and make the facts on the ground change when you can.
yeah,
We'll deal with it later. If it's imperfect, we'll find something else. But like right now, repeal it. And he didn't. And
yeah,
it was appalling. The ongoing destruction, Obamacare, Dodd-Frank, like first order of business is just to draw up a list of shit going back to Sarbanes-Oxley and
yeah,
just repeal it. Gone. Goodbye. All this
yeah.
crap. Woof. Gone. And I know from having worked in the capital markets during Dodd-Frank, I mean, it was an adjective. I got Dodd-Franked.
Wow, I
It
didn't know that. Yeah, yeah,
destroyed businesses that had nothing to do with the crisis, which was entirely caused by Congress mandating Fannie and Freddie
yeah,
give give mortgages to deadbeats who never pay it back. Congress did this to us. And you know they did it to us because in 07, 08, while the destruction was happening, every single talking head in the media echoed greedy bankers, greedy bankers, greedy bankers, greedy bankers,
uh-huh,
greedy bankers. They just given the script. And any time anyone brought up Fannie and Freddie and housing and Clinton and the Community Reinvestment Act and redlining, which of course, again, redlining, which the Democrats like to scream about, where they took minority neighborhoods and said you're
yeah,
not allowed to mortgages here. Democrats did that.
yeah,
I love the fact that Democrats implement all this racist shit over and over again, and then when the effects happen 20 years later, they turn around and blame it on Republicans. And the worst part is Republicans have been historically so bad at PR that they don't fight back. They don't point it out. They're like, "Oh, redlining, that thing that FDR created, like that's the answer." Not, "Oh, well, we're changing. What are we changing? We didn't do it. You did it." And that's
yeah,
been the major flaw. Hopefully, we're getting better at it. Certainly, we won this election, so now it's just a matter of we need to demonstrate to the American people that there are still actual Republican convictions about proper governance that are now going to be put in place. We're not just going to go along with, well, let's spend more. No, 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 no. We're chopping the government down to size, eliminating entire departments. And when it's over, it's going to
yeah.
be great.
Probably, I hate to be the doom guy, but I was actually a intern in the U.S. Senate in the summer of '95 were the glorious 104th Congress and Newt Gingrich was running things, and
Yep.
we were promising to eliminate whole departments back then, and 30 years
Yep.
later, they're still here.
That's right. And now is the time to take them out.
Yeah, and
Yes,
so
the
I'm
failures of the past are
I'm
myriad.
honestly not prepared to think about what Trump's going to do or cabinet selections. I have a few thoughts, but yeah, I don't know. I'm still sort of digesting. And there's one point I'd love to make about elections and Obama, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that guy is freaking toxic. It's
Oh
a
yeah.
I went
Yeah.
back to check. I looked at the 2008 election. It's
Yeah.
like, that's right. He won 52.9% of the vote and 365 electoral votes. There's a good, clean, solid victory. There's
That's
nothing wrong with
that's the
it.
mandate.
But
Yep.
I remember thinking, this isn't transformative. This is just a victory.
Yeah.
Hillary probably would have gotten the same number, the same percentage of the vote. It was just time between the war and the financial crisis and 8 years of Bush.
Yep.
Obama didn't really do anything special, and here he is 16 years later, still costing the Democrats. If they're smart, they got to tell him to get the hell out of Washington and go make Netflix movies because he is just utterly toxic. He
Yeah.
and his overprivileged yet terminally unhappy wife. I don't get it. How
No.
can she be so unhappy? She's the most admired woman in the world, and she's still miserable. It's just tough to watch these people.
Well, tough or joyful, you
It's
choose.
like
Given how much
almost,
damage he did, I'm delighted
yeah,
that
yeah. I mean,
leaving.
go grab Bill Clinton, who knows a thing or two about winning elections and relating to normies, and say, Bill, we want you to be like the chair emeritus, like Washington at the Constitutional Convention of
Yeah.
our committee that's going to figure out what to do next. And you just sit there, and every time someone says something woke and stupid, you just go, don't you dare finish that sentence. Sit the hell down.
And Bill, I'm going to even suggest that you tell them put some ice on that. Oh, did I? Yes, I
Ooh.
did. Oh, yes, I did. Um, just the
Yeah.
worst.
Because I mean, the country works best when we've got two sane political parties,
Yeah,
like in the 90s.
yeah.
And remember
But
how toxic we thought that was? Remember the Clinton wars? And now I'm thinking, remember how awful people thought the Bush Gore debates were?
yeah.
You
Oh, the
remember that? I went back and I
nostalgia.
watched
Oh,
them.
the nostalgia for the comedy and even-handedness.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Cheney and Lieberman are sitting there at a table having a quiet discussion about policy.
if they were
And here
adults.
we are now.
I think the one thing, and I had this chat earlier. The only thing that Republicans can now lead the way in actually restoring normalcy to the country.
Yeah,
And all I hear from, I listen closely, got teenage kids, I know younger people, listen to my wife, who, certainly did not vote for Kamala, but, not sharing her vote, but she hated Kamala too, and hates Trump, hates them all. Um, the very real concern, which if we manage it correctly, um, if we take abortion off the table as a cudgel for the left to beat up on Republicans, the Vance election will be 75-25. And I
yeah,
say that because plenty of people knowing that Republicans have a better kind of fiscal policy plan, better kind of deterrent in wars, they're outraged by the fact that we've backslid to the danger of back alley abortions
yeah,
for girls who get in trouble from smooth talkers who walk away.
yeah,
So we have to get back to what the middle of the ground was, which was, yeah, fully believe people with religious rights is a spark of life, God incarnate, and committing murder at a week. You're gonna keep believing it the rest of your life. The rest of us can't give a shit, right? Republicans don't want government in our lives. So why do you want government in a doctor's office, right?
yeah,
Just stop it. Every state, first trimester, leave it to the doctors. The state will have no fucking law about
yeah,
this. And couple it with true sex education reform. Truly. Start telling these kids what's what. Jocelyn Elder, and I will respect that woman till I die. Remember her?
Oh yeah,
Surgeon General under Bill Clinton,
the name I
who
haven't heard in a while.
came out of a bad fucking life, grew up in a tough neighborhood, right? And she was tough talking woman, and said to all these politicians who were used to like not talking about things like vaginas, right? She said, "You don't you," and she's pointing at like some like Strom Thurmond or some racist white asshole right in the
Yeah.
audience, like you don't want more black babies, right? Right? Let's start there. You don't want more black babies. I don't want more black, white, brown, or yellow babies born out of wedlock. Like we all want to stop babies having babies. We want to stop this generational curse of undereducated young women with no opportunity being saddled with the baby and ruining her life and all that. We want to stop all that. So you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna start in like fucking seventh grade and sixth grade, teaching these kids how to get each other off manually.
Oh
And
yeah, I've heard that
remember that?
theory
She's like,
before.
we're
Yeah.
gonna teach mutual masturbation and blowjobs. And they all went nuts. The Republicans like, you can't talk about sex, right? And Clinton himself caved and bowed and fired her. And shame on him for that, because she was like, I don't need all your illusions. I don't need you idiots who apparently by age 30 have forgotten what it felt like to be 16. And
Yeah.
you think that the teacher talking about sex is going to give them the idea. Like, I don't care how stupid you are. We're going to accept reality. Kids are fucking horny. That's why there's 6 billion people on the planet. We're
Yeah.
going to teach them how to have fun without getting babies. And he fired her and shamed the fuck on him, because that was the last smart woman I heard talk about this in a realistic way. You don't want abortion? No one wants an abortion. No one
Yeah.
fucking wants an abortion. Why don't we teach them how not to get pregnant in a realistic way?
Yeah.
Not a you can't get pregnant until you're married. How's that working out for you? So that to me really is all the policy stuff. I'm on board with doing whatever small part I can play to
Right.
help move that stuff forward and cut departments and all that. But when it comes down to really, I hate to be corny, really healing the nation, that's the one issue that we've just got to take away from the Democrats, who just keep milking it. It's the Handmaid's Tale. It's blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Enough already. That's my thought. Do you think I'm
Yeah.
wrong on that or right on
No.
that?
Well, you know, I well when the Dodd decision came down, it looked to me like most of the pro-life organizations had no idea what to do except say, "Well, we're going to do a national abortion ban now." Like, you morons.
Right.
This is the hard part now. And what I really have always believed what President Bush the younger said in the 2000s. Well, I'm an abolitionist. I'm pro-life for the most part. I could live with like a 15 or 20 week ban just for realism purposes. And what I'm
Right.
going to do is what Bush said is I'm going to have that culture of life where I'm going to try to convince you not to have the abortion. And
Right.
I would make the abortion pill over the counter.
And it pretty much is now. You can order it over the
Yeah,
internet. So
because
once
you know
again,
what
poor girls are
yeah,
disadvantaged, whereas middle class girls can get it done.
yeah. I mean, you're talking about having an abortion weeks into a pregnancy, which again, I don't love, but it's a hell of a lot lesser of a tragedy than 6, 7, 8 months. And so
Yes.
it's just about being realistic.
Yes. It's
And
about
again,
being
I
realistic.
really, Ben Shapiro said this, like, well, what would you do to help? And if there was a teenage girl in my neighborhood who was pregnant, I said, I would help. I said, yeah, because I did Mr. Mom duty with all three of my kids. Like, yeah, you can tap me for a couple hours, and
Yep.
that's the way you do it. You create the culture of life.
Yep.
And by the way, the Europeans mostly have harder cutoffs than most states do.
Yes.
Fortunately,
Oh
it's like
yeah.
11, 12, 15 weeks, so
Yeah.
it can be done. It's not
It can
rocket
be
science.
done. And I think
But,
it's the last thing that is funny, because I actually got a lifelong Democrat liberal to see the light on this. Is right after Roe v. Wade was overturned. And she was telling me the usual talking points. The Republicans have been, raising money on this. I said, hold on, just hold on a minute. 3 times since Roe v. Wade, the Democrats held the House, the Senate, and the Pen.
Yeah.
Why didn't they create a national abortion law then if it was so important to them? I would argue it's because they loved it as a fundraising mechanism. Those horrifying Republicans are going to take away the right to choose. Well, you had 6 solid years at least when you could have passed a national abortion law
Yeah,
and made Roe v. Wade irrelevant. As even
yeah,
RGB said, it was bad law, bad jurisprudence.
yeah.
The fact they didn't means that they didn't mean it. Whereas the Republicans, when they finally got their ducks in a row, they meant it.
Meant it.
They meant
Yeah,
it.
and I just think you can call it wimping out if you want. You just if California wants to have abortions, and they'll have all the abortions they want. There's really nothing you can do about it if you're pro-life, other than try to convince, women who are pregnant that you don't need the abortion, which I guess is a crime in California now.
Yep. Yep.
That's another issue.
Yep. It's got
Um,
to be done state by state, and I just
yeah,
hope it's I hope it's something in which they just harmonize
yeah,
because, frankly, a girl who was raped, I think, by a family member in Texas died a few months ago because no doctor would take the risk
yeah,
of getting her abortion. Now, that's horrifying. And that young woman is the poster child for throwing the Republicans out of office. And
yeah,
justifiably so. That is a moral horror, an absolute moral horror. And right, and for all again, I get it. For those people who are like, a fetus is a child, is a human being like any other. I totally get it. But the reality is, having studied anthropology, every culture throughout time, the women have had a way of dealing with a whoops, right?
yeah,
And so as long as it's still a whoops and not a baby, right? That's the big thing that changed from Roe v. Wade was the age of viability shrunk, right? With advanced NICUs and advanced
yeah,
technology. So, but as long as it's in that window, and again, which comes to education, as one woman wrote about this very intelligently, she's like, I'm a teacher in the South Bronx. I don't think you understand how much these girls don't know. And some of them get to 8 or 9 months, they don't even know they're pregnant. Like it's
right.
baffling to me, but there's an entire series on television. Have you seen this? I didn't know I was pregnant.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've never watched, but yeah,
I
I
thought
had
it
a
was a
relative who
one-off,
like,
that's
yeah,
incredible kind of thing. It was a fucking series.
yeah,
So I'm it's Churchill never said it, but it's attributed to him. But the sentiment is right. You could judge a society by how well it treats its most vulnerable
yeah,
members, right? There's nothing more vulnerable than a poor 14-year-old pregnant girl,
yeah,
right? Nothing. Perhaps the family has determined she's a slut and thrown her out of the house. Like, who knows? Even with a supportive family, it's tough. And how we collectively, in this instance, set up safety nets that are real for people in that position speaks a lot to a culture of life, to a culture
yeah,
that supports we support you, and including up to right. You're terrified, you're poor. Yeah, we have medical care. If you want to have this baby and give it up
yeah,
for adoption, we can do that for you. If you don't, and it's only 9 weeks in, okay.
right. I mean, to be honest, I was a 33-year-old man with our first baby, and I was terrified.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Right. When they hand that to you, like, well, I can take this. I don't need to pass the test. What the fuck you
Yeah.
talking?
Can we just take this home? What do we do now?
After our first, we roared with laughter because they gave us a pamphlet. Our
Yeah.
boy's got a PhD, gave us a pamphlet, and we just laughed. Like, you got to watch the video before you leave, and it's like, don't shake the baby. And so and 'cause, I love that though. But it's like practical advice to young parents.
Yeah.
The baby will not die from screaming. If you're about to lose your fucking mind,
Oh
put the
yeah.
baby down in the crib and go outside and have a fucking martini.
Yeah.
Better than you
Yeah.
trying to deal with an infant who is rubbing sandpaper on your exhausted nerves.
Oh
If you
boy.
don't have family, put the child down, go outside in the
Is
hallway,
that
have a
ever
cigarette.
right? Boy, I wish I'd known that.
Right?
Because like I said, I did Mr. Mom, and like the baby the first 3 months, I wish I just it's okay to let a baby cry. Just
Yeah.
put the baby down, go sit outside for 5 minutes.
Relax, have a beer,
It'll be
relax,
okay. Yeah.
chill out, take a nap.
But
But
anyway,
but that's it's the
didn't
only thing I
anticipate talking childcare tips. Uh,
yeah, Charlie, exactly. Well, I've had three and they all survived, right? And every
yeah.
every night we did a head check. There were three, often the same three, so that was
Uh-huh.
good. Um, and yeah, we got to bring that back. I see it in Europe with the low birth rates. We see it here with the low birth
Yep.
rates, right? And to the Democrats, low birth rates are an excuse to increase illegal immigration, as opposed to changing the stupid policies that mean every new house that's built, 70% of the cost is literally government red fucking tape, as
Yeah.
opposed to two by fours and sheeting. So there's a great cartoon in Dilbert where whatever it was, the pointy-haired boss was suggesting solutions that had nothing to do with the problem, and Dilbert screams at him, and says, "You're fixing the wrong problem," right? And I think
Yeah, that
about that
sounds like him.
constantly when I hear the Democrats talk. They create a law that creates stupid impacts, that raises prices and does damaging shit, and instead of just saying "whoops" and repealing it, they create another law to try to fix the symptoms of the first stupid law they created in this never-ending daisy chain of rising costs and increased red tape. And what we need to do is literally take that flaming sword and just cut through all of it.
Yeah. I really think that's the thing. I don't want to hear about, this new tax cut legislation. Um, I don't know how you do it, but you take that sword to the bureaucracy.
Yep.
It's sort of like um the red tape.
The good
Like you
news
said,
is
yeah.
no one has to wonder how to do it.
Ah,
I've given us the
that's
roadmap.
some great guerrilla marketing.
Yeah, this is
I really hope
it.
they start moving agencies out of Washington.
Yes,
Why does the Department of
yes.
Agriculture have to be in Washington? It should be in
Put it out
Omaha
in Nebraska. Yep,
or Des Moines or something.
yep,
Energy should be in, Oklahoma,
yep.
right? Uh,
Just because Texas has too much already, they need a little humbling.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, um, uh,
To me, I suggested it's funny, exact same thing. And kings, Elizabeth the First did this. Charlemagne did it. Other European kings did it. Basically, they had an itinerant court where he would travel around, and if you were getting way too rich, he would come visit you because you know how expensive it is
yeah,
to entertain the king and his 2,000 person retinue.
yeah, and you're too
He
busy to
sticks around
plot.
for 3 weeks. You're poor,
Yeah, and
right?
you can't
So
plot against him.
yeah, exactly. Now you're broke, and you can't plot against him because his soldiers are there. Similarly, you just move. You know the department heads of these various departments that remain once we cut them.
Yeah,
Um, just shift them around and have a lottery system. Hey,
yeah,
this year the Department of the Interior Mineral Rights Group is going to be in Omaha,
yeah,
and it's like the
yeah,
Olympics. And then next year it's going to be in San Diego.
yeah.
So
I
you
mean,
can't develop an entrenched bureaucracy
yeah.
that just trades amongst itself for its own interests and votes 94% Democrat. Thank you
Yeah,
very
I
much.
think it was Jim Garrity at National Review who wrote a book called The Weed Agency,
Mhm.
which is about this little tiny agency that deals with weeds. And it's 1980, and Ronald Reagan won, and their budget's $19 million. And it was about the 25-year odyssey to try to get rid of it. And by the time the novel's over, their budget's $1 billion, and they've got this new $500,000, Taj Mahal building and of brutalist architecture in Washington.
Of
And
course.
like you just can't get rid of it. So
Yeah.
like you put interior where like Montana or something. I mean that'll piss off the environmentalists.
Perfect. Exactly.
I mean
Yeah.
you just there's no like Veterans Affairs should be in the center of the country someplace,
Yes.
right?
Or
So it's just easier
there
to
should
get to.
actually be. There used to be the beautiful part about where we are, and as societies evolve, they evolve with technology. So centralization in an era of passenger pigeon and railroad made sense.
Yeah,
There is no need for centralization now, as is proven by the leading asset management firms, banks, hedge funds, who they all everyone forgets that the hedge funds left New York City to go to Greenwich, Connecticut, because Connecticut at the time had no income tax. That's why they went to Connecticut.
uh-huh.
Then Connecticut began to get lefty doofy, and they caught up. So New Jersey, Connecticut, and New York. New York was still the most expensive tax wise, but Connecticut and Jersey were right up there. And then they all went to Florida. So the CEOs of hedge funds moved down here years ago. They've got some trading operations in New York still. All the back office, Goldman Sachs put their entire back office in Jacksonville, Florida. I think starting 20 years ago in 2003, right after the IPO in 99. So distributed systems work really well.
Yeah.
That was before really internet and blockchain, but there's no reason that any of these departments requires a big shiny marble building anymore. None.
Nope.
especially since, and I'm going to give this spoiler to my listeners, having been working in DC for the last 4 years, because I'm in mining, dealing with State Department and dealing with lots of different departments. All of those employees that we're paying went home over the Wuhan fiasco and never fucking went back.
Yeah,
I walked through empty buildings all the time. I was
yeah.
at not DHS, they're also mostly empty. What's the idiots that pretend they can fix the world?
State Department?
No. Those are the ones that mess up the world. The ones that pretend that they're going to go in and like build stuff up. Um, Driving me crazy. Blanking on it. Anyway, huge department, tens of thousands of employees. They're all around the world. Kind of like the Peace Corps, but they do development work. Anyway, point is, I went for a meeting and it was all about, big transaction in Africa. We owned a mine down there and they were offering to be helpful. So if they're going to be helpful, great, right? We'll go. Trying to find a meeting room, walking through literally a mile of empty cubicles. Not that there aren't employees, or there
Yeah,
are employees, they're just not there. They're home, doing whatever.
yeah.
And it was infuriating. And eventually, because I couldn't contain myself, because we're marching around trying to find a conference room, which oddly were full. I said, I don't mean to be a dick about this, but why can't we have this meeting right here? There's no one here. Like, we don't need to find a conference room. There's nobody here on this entire floor. So I just think that the more the American people get a transparent view into the completely wildly parasitic money waste that is Washington. You know the metric with Pete Buttigieg in charge of transportation when he's not off playing, daddy to twins. They spent, the EV charging fiasco, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, $1 billion per EV charging station built. Just wrap your brain around that. I
Yeah.
don't even know where that money went.
I don't
Like,
understand. I live in a neighborhood that's loaded with Teslas. They're everywhere, and
they're
everyone's got a
everywhere.
little charging hub at their house.
Yes, if you
Yeah,
just hired a random citizen with a credit card to say, put in charging stations, he or she would have it done in a week and then submit a check for reimbursement.
yeah.
But $1 billion per charging, like $1 million per charging station is insane.
Yeah.
Like I was going through a mental exercise trying to figure out, okay, maybe Booz Allen had a consulting contract and at the wildest expense of mapping out the roads and maybe that was a $20 million contract. Okay, so that's 20 million out of $1 billion gone. Where did that money go? Who got paid? What did they not do? It is such an insanely huge. You could build aircraft carriers.
Well, that's an interesting point. The great historian, a really acclaimed historian, Arthur Herman, wrote a book about the U.S. economy in World War II and all these industrialists who,
Yep,
in 3.5 years built this massive war machine.
yep,
And we couldn't do that today. I mean, they like within a couple of months are like, yeah, all right, we can start building these medium bombers. And
yep,
they're rolling out
yeah,
escort carriers every 6 months, and people you hear 1941, 1945. It sounds like a 5 year war, but for us it was less than four.
yeah,
And they built like 30 or 35 aircraft carriers in that time, and
yep. We're
15
standing up.
man military
We're
and
at my
thousands.
partners and I
Yeah,
are restarting a munitions factory that was functioning in World War II, and we've toured it, and it was great because after the war was over,
yeah.
gotta love the army. They covered all the machines in grease and threw tarps over them, tied them down, and went away. And so we did a tour a few months ago because we're going to restart it, and and it was phenomenal. Like, got the Army Corps of Engineers there. The head of the Army Corps years ago, he's no longer there, so I can tell this joke. After 3 or 4 beers at a barbecue once, he said, "Do you know what the unofficial motto of the Corps is?" No. He said, "We may be slow, but at least we're expensive."
I think I've heard that before. Yeah. It was like a couple of years ago down in Florida, they had a hurricane, took out a bridge. DeSantis had a new bridge built in like what, 72 hours or something?
Done.
He
Right.
just
So
called
it
the
can be
yeah,
done.
the
The
public
things
works
that
guy said,
stop it,
go build a bridge. Do
go
whatever
build a
you have to
bridge.
do.
And the
If
good
there's a
news
problem,
is,
call me at home.
all this is coming back. This guy wrote a great essay. I forget his name. It was up yesterday, and he diagnosed the problem perfectly. That Republicans in general, or practical people in general, want to solve a problem. The problem with Democrats is what he calls it the everything is everything problem. So you can't just build a factory to produce charging stations. You got to make sure it's socially just and the right number of this color person is hired. And do they have gender equality? And is it not carbon impactful? So everything is everything. You can't just do a thing that needs to be done, which is build a bridge. You have to make sure it's prevailing wage laws. You got to make sure that you give preferential bidding to disabled veterans. Like they layer on all of this shit so that every single thing they ever do has to be idyllically and ideologically perfect, which nothing ever is, which is why nothing ever happens. So if the mandate had been build EV charging stations and it was given to a civil engineer, he or she would have gone and done it at an inflated cost of $2,000 each when the thing on your wall in your garage for your Tesla is $400, right? So let's say it's 5x government inefficiency, 2 grand a piece,
Yeah.
not $1 billion, which is a number that's so large. It's like a Zen koan. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
$1
Which
billion
is
dollars.
why
1
we have
billion.
this situation now. It's why we have Trump. And
Yep.
I guess
And we
it's
got to
why he
fix it.
won. I mean, I think said this last time. I boxed up all my MAGA gear,
Yep.
put it on shelf. Day after the election, I took it down for the
Right.
first time when I opened it. I took a photograph.
Oh, did light come
Oh,
out of it when you opened it up?
yeah. I mean, yeah. Speaking of Raiders of the Lost Ark, metaphors. I halfway expect ghosts to come out and my face to start melting.
Exactly.
But
You're not worthy.
yeah, like there's my MAGA hat, a little moldy. I put it on anyway.
Yeah.
That was one dark January, man. And in my heart of hearts, I never really believed we'd be here
Yeah. The
with,
man is a machine. Can we
yeah,
give him credit? I'm going to take away the verbal Tourette's and when he acts like a dick and all that occasionally. Like from a holding someone up as a model of perseverance, he kicks the ass out of Odysseus. I
yeah,
mean, you were rich and no one bugged you. You ran for president. Everyone talks about he did it to enrich himself. No, everyone who goes into office poor comes out rich.
yeah,
He went in rich and has lost half his wealth doing
yeah,
literally battling for the American people. So every single thing they say about him is a lie. He has lost billions personally
yeah,
from fighting this fight because it's the right thing to do. And that is something to hold up as a fine example. They have I mean, can you imagine the stress of being prosecuted in 4 different places
yeah.
by people who could put you in prison forever?
Who are dumb enough to try to do it.
Who dumb enough to try to do it, but they did it. Like just the ability to not throw in the towel. You want to talk about grit. When they talk about grit and character to Harvard Business School students, they should get over their Trump derangement syndrome and point to an example of real grit. Because at any
Yeah,
moment, who needs this shit? I'm 74 years old. I'm rich as hell. I can retire and sit in Captain Team and do nothing for the rest of my life. And instead, he doubled down and fought harder. They shot him,
yeah,
and he
and
stood up
better,
and said,
a
"Fight."
lot better. Since the debate, which I knew it wasn't a disaster because you learn it's not what happens that night. It's the next few days. I'll go back to it again. 2004. Everyone thought
Yep.
Kerry won, and no, he didn't.
Oh,
Because but he's just been pitch perfect.
yeah.
I knew the Hinchcliffe joke wasn't no one was going to care about it, least of all Hispanic Americans who were probably like, yeah, Puerto Rico is it's a little sketchy.
It's a shithole.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's so condescending.
Right.
It's just being Jewish myself, and people talk about the Jewish vote, like there's not 50 different kinds of Jews just in America alone. And
Yeah.
like and you just think about it, well, it's got to be the same with Spanish speaking people, doesn't it?
Right.
And of course it is.
Right.
And just like it is with Arabs and everyone else. I mean, oh, and that's a neat trick Kamala did, right? She lost both Jewish and Arab votes.
Brilliant.
How do you do
Well
that?
done. By assuming that good Americans who happen to be either of Arab extraction and or Muslim,
Yeah.
approved of October 7th. That was the presumption
Yeah.
behind the Democrats pandering, right? I just saw something great today. One of the leading Islamic scholars in Gaza issued a 6-page fatwa condemning Hamas for October 7th.
Yeah.
Magic, right? It's I've worked in that world and I've worked in Sharia finance. Something I've worked in that region. The one thing again, I can't say it from the outside. It's got to be from the inside, but it's not new. But Islam is kind of in the process of its own sort of Protestant Reformation, right?
Yeah.
In that, okay, yes, look, go to synagogue all the time. I rep the tefillin every morning. Parts of the Bible tell me to stone to death someone who takes God's name in vain. Am I
Yeah.
doing that? No, it's ridiculous. Right? We're a modern society. We don't do that. We don't do that, right? And the Talmudists have come up with very tortured logic. I know it says an eye for an eye, but what about if the criminal who commits the crime has no eyes, right? So it clearly can't mean that. It must mean restorative justice in some way. So it must mean a shekel amount, right? So Judaism has gone through it. Christianity, for the most part, except for the lunatics who protest at Marine funerals who think it's beautiful because faggots are
Yeah.
allowed. Aside from those lunatics, Christianity's gone through it, right? No
Yeah.
one's burning witches at the stake in Florence anymore, as fun as it might be. So, and Islam is kind of the last major Abrahamic holdout where there's still countries like Afghanistan, Pakistan, North London, where
Yeah.
they're honor killing and they're ripping the eyes out of sons who talk to a girl of the wrong sex. Like
Yeah.
that, but that is an internal
Yeah. And even the
Muslim problem.
Saudis now
Even the
are,
Saudis,
yeah,
yeah,
they're doing these mind, which, 20 years ago I thought they were the ultimate enemy.
nope,
And now, they're actually slowly coming around.
yeah. So it
Um,
will come around, but that's the last bastion. More and more imams and scholars need to speak up and say, and he talked about it. There are guidelines in any moral system. There are guidelines to jihad, right? It's not just infidel, infidel, infidel. There has to be a justification. There has to be a reason why you are entering into this
yeah.
battle. You're also importantly, but this is the wisdom of the hadith, you are prohibited from starting a war that you cannot win that will only cause damage to your community. That is in the
Oops.
hadith. Yeah, like you are not allowed, you weren't going to win by killing 1,200 people. You
Yeah.
weren't going to. There was not even a lottery ticket chance that you were going to defeat Israel with this.
Yeah.
Therefore, you are prohibited from entering into that activity because 43,000 Palestinians are going to die. It was a very powerful fatwa, and I'm kind of curious to see kind of the reaction in the Arab world is one thing, but like if I would bet you the New York Times will never even cover it. They'll never even hear about
Oh
it.
no. Uh, yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. They were dancing in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Iran was like, oh my God, we're in the if if I was your average Ukrainian, I'd actually probably be pretty happy because I think I think Trump's going to say, all right, I'm going to sit Putin down. I'm going to
Yep.
talk to him. I'm going to make him a deal. Right? Trump's going to make a deal. That's what he does.
Yes.
And no one's going to be 100% happy and just wind down
Yeah.
this
Enough of this
stupid
shit.
war. And I'm not justifying Putin at
No.
all.
No. But
Okay?
people are dying, and
I think he's going to
European
get what he
borders have
wants.
shifted
Yeah.
over and over again over the centuries. Well, it's fucking shifting again.
I
Congratulations, you took it.
yeah, I
If you
think
try
Putin,
to if you
yeah,
try to do this to Estonia, Latvia, Poland, or anyone else, we will nuke you.
yeah.
Okay? You're done. Here's the line. Go fucking home.
Yeah, I think Putin will get what he wants. And
Yeah.
then the question I will spend the rest of his life asking is, okay, Vlad, do you think it was worth it? You got these two provinces
Yeah.
and you've decapitated Ukraine. It'll never be the same. It's never going to be a threat to you again. Was it worth all this?
Yeah. Was it ever a threat to
Yeah,
you syphilitic lunatic, right?
yeah,
Like when it started, I was not alone in this, but like it is a wonderful way to illustrate to kids today or to anyone who thinks that who never actually has to encounter different cultures, especially in America, right? You can travel this whole country and people have slightly different accents, but they're Americans, right? The way of thinking is so foreign. Like you have looted your country. You're a multi-billionaire.
Yeah.
You got 100,000 square foot gilt palaces you don't visit. You sleep on a bed of prostitutes covered in gold dust and cocaine every night. Why would you start a war? Who cares? And clearly he did and does.
Yeah.
And it's baffling,
Yeah. Well,
baffling, baffling, baffling.
the Tucker Carlson interview was so fascinating
Yeah.
because, you know, this has been true for a millennia. We in the West don't get Russia. An
No.
Indian American friend of mine, by which I mean India, who
Right.
lived in Moscow for 5 years in the 80s and speaks
Yep.
Russian, said, "Here's the thing you guys don't understand. They look like Europeans, but they think like Asians."
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
Totally.
and and you get all the neocons and Liz Cheney types, and they just hate Russia now, and the New York Times and the neolibs, and they hate Russia now because it represents something to them, which it's this white country, and which it's not. I mean, there are tens of millions of Russians who aren't white,
Yep. In
and
any way, shape, or form.
yeah, but they're still Russian, or at least they're citizens. I can't say
Yep.
what how they think of themselves exactly. But Tucker Carlson hit on something that a lot of us on the right have noticed about a place like Russia, is that it respects its culture.
Yeah.
It builds.
Hardcore.
You've seen those wonderful Russian subways.
Yeah.
Compare that to the New York City subway.
Yeah.
I mean, and and I'm not saying I'm a Russian expert, but I spent a lot of time recently in the last week just reading up on Russian history and everything, and it'll make a little more sense. But people were slamming Carlson for
That was the best.
interviewing
I love it that
Putin.
journalists aren't supposed to be journalists
Yeah,
because they're
and
not
you just let
supposed
him
to talk to
talk.
people. You know, talk. And letting him talk was fascinating
Yeah,
because he wasn't a raving maniac.
yeah,
He had a deeply nuanced historical understanding, right? And coming from a pride of culture in a way that I don't think Americans ever can because we don't have that historical depth. We all
yeah,
came in, we found it. Our founders were people running scared because of religious persecution,
yeah.
right? Whereas he's looking back at all of their history
I mean, he
and
literally
all
said
of
like, "Let me
their
start in 1016 or something," right? It was
yeah,
like that, like
yeah, and went and through that timeline, like
yeah,
three PhDs in Slavic history in his chat, right?
yeah,
Um, and it doesn't matter to me. I mean, I can ask what I want. I can ask my question of why bother, right? But again, I'm not particularly motivated by money either. I do lots of things that I think are important, right? I have a dialogue podcast where we cover good ideas. I don't expect to do anything but lose money here because who cares, right? So I
oh yeah,
get it that people do shit that is not related to wealth. Um, but again, I'm not putting dozens of my friends' sons' lives at risk by
yep,
hosting a podcast. So I hope not. You know, that need to create this buffer, and it was well not funny, but it was 3 weeks after the invasion. I was in London having lunch with a guy I've been introduced to who was such a purely English type you just can't make up. Like he can trace his ancestors directly back to 1066, like
got
direct line, right?
a Norman
Um,
name.
yeah,
Yeah,
hilarious. And he was like the 10th. I'm not kidding.
yeah.
Whatever his name is, the 10th. Funniest thing ever. You know, went led to this lovely restaurant in London, which of course is normal sanitary conditions. And he walks in with his fucking Great Dane, who sits down, who sits next to us and behaves itself, and the staff says nothing. It was hilarious. But he said, because he's a diplomat, so I'm giving no names. He's a diplomat. And he said, he looked around first, which was really funny because we're having, a meal in a quiet restaurant in London. He looks around, he's like, Zelensky was told. Like he told him, don't fuck around with this NATO thing.
Yeah.
They told him, right? That was his whole comment. He's like, right? Everyone's all surprised. What are you surprised about? He was told not to do it. The bear told him not to do it, and he poked the bear.
Yeah,
What do you
that's
get when you poke
I
the bear?
I wrote an article once. Tyler, why poke the bear? Like we spent
What?
30. Why are you antagonizing him?
Why poke the bear? And much like the Gulf War, right? We're gonna, how are we, invading oil monarchies to save democracy, right? All that's always flimsy for the American public. But Ukraine is corrupt as hell.
Yeah,
Under Zelensky, not under Zelensky, and the folks I know who have the U.S. government contracts for rebuilding, right? So they're putting in
yeah,
power stations and all that. Like, they have no illusions either. The money doesn't go to Ukraine. The money is allocated to Western contracting companies
contractors.
who present a bill for what they're going to build. And if any locals are going to get paid, they're getting paid out of petty cash by the American or the Brit who's sitting there with security with the cash box. There is not a single penny going to the government of Ukraine as the American taxpayer spends billions to fix
Yeah.
this nonsense. So there's at least
So
a little hope there.
so I hope it's almost like I watched the left of the Ukraine war and they become so fanatically Ukrainian. It's hard not to root for the Russians at some point,
At
just
this
to
point,
stick
yeah,
it to these people.
all these people, if you ask any of them with the Ukrainian flag in the window,
Yeah,
why? I don't think 99% of them would have an answer. Much like, which I guess is good or bad depending, much like when you go to Harvard Yard and some idiot's yelling from the river to the sea, you shove a camera in their face and say, "What's the name of the river?" And they look at you blankly, right? So I'm still back and forth. It's still a mob. It's still calling for the death of Jews. But like, is it better that the kid holding the sign got paid $20 from George Soros and is really there because he wants to get with the cute chick who asked him if he's
well,
come to the
yeah.
rally?
I mean,
Or does he have a completely Putin-esque line of historical logic as to why the Jews are so evil and to be exterminated? I don't know which is worse.
yeah. Well, at least the left is going to have its excuse now when Ukraine loses
Yeah,
or Russia wins. Is well, Trump did it. Because Trump, because I really can't imagine Trump is going to continue, the arms supply. And so that's one war that'll end. I'm actually getting really optimistic now that the Gaza war is going to end, and Hezbollah's like, we better get north of the Litani River fast.
yeah,
And actually, I'll tell you the first thing Trump should do. He should get sworn in and then go call Iran and say, Hamas is holding 6 American citizens. They're
yeah.
released by midnight tonight,
Or I
or by
bombed Tehran.
12:01. I'm going to bomb your nuclear industry,
Yeah.
and I can do it because I've already got stealth bombers in Saudi Arabia and all
Have
those
you seen the most
F-16s in there.
recent naval map? I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
It shows the disposition of the U.S. fleet. So here's Iran. Here are the two oceans, right? Here's the
yeah,
Mediterranean, here's the Indian Ocean. They're all converging. There
yeah,
have been 40,000 Marines sitting on carriers in the Med for the last two
yeah,
months. They're going to be
yeah,
in downtown Tehran
yeah.
soon.
I
Now,
mean,
my hope
just
is
yeah,
Biden is enough of an American and a real man who's going to do it fucking tomorrow. That would be
yeah.
phenomenal because he's
I mean,
already lost. He
just for
doesn't
the record,
care.
I don't think America should be fighting Israel's war. I've been blogging that for over a year now. It's Israel's war. We shouldn't fight it.
I
But
think it's our war.
but for the for the American hostages,
Oh
you
yeah,
release them tonight.
tonight.
We're
Release them
not.
all
This is not
tonight.
an. And this is not a negotiation.
Nope. I
All
agree.
of them
Not a negotiation.
tonight.
Much like last time this happened,
Yeah.
the day as Reagan was being
Yeah.
sworn in, the hostages were landing at Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany
Yeah.
out of the embassy in Tehran. Because the Iranians like, we're fucked. He's coming. So
Yeah.
I will disagree with you slightly on this. This is America's war. The military still remembers Beirut,
Yeah.
still remember the Marine barracks. This is America's war. This is
And I
not
see your
Israel's
point,
war.
and Iraq and the Iraq War too. But I'm just a little sensitive to the Jew wants America to, which, and by the way, I will also say if America decided we wanted to take out Iran's nuclear program,
Yep,
well, yeah, we could sure do that. It'd be a hell of a lot easier for us to do it
yep.
than for the Israelis, and a lot
I,
quicker.
I
And
think we're
and
going to.
but honestly, since Israel has more or less already won the Gaza war
Yes.
and accomplished what it wanted to in Lebanon, and that's a brilliant story. So there's another situation that should calm down. Though I again back to 2004, I thought things were really going to look good in the Middle East because Bush got
Yeah,
reelected. So
I think it's funny, and this is where, this is one of those dollar bets. Um, it's not that I want this to happen. I think this is. I went back and started rereading Churchill's Second World War. At every point in that conflict, there were presented options to nations, and there was almost never a choice. You had to do one thing.
yeah,
And I think here we are, World War III, and I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And my joy about Trump winning was I think it's going to be won faster now rather than cackle sitting around hemming and hawing surrounded by leftists. Um, I think, yeah, by the end of it, my prediction has been, unlike what we saw in Amsterdam last night,
oof,
uh, is that an Orthodox Jewish couple sitting in Casablanca will say, "We need a walking holiday," and they can get up and they can walk
yeah,
the entire perimeter of the Med to Istanbul without anybody doing anything but offer them a cup of tea. That, I think, is what we're going to get to, but we're going to get to that after a vast expansion of hostilities. Vast. Iran, they will be toppled. Syria, Bashar Assad, they're gone. Like all these assholes,
yeah,
enough. Saudi is already reforming itself to make sure
right,
that they work correctly. The UAE has always been, we're traders. Yeah. Qatar, those morons, if they don't stop supporting Hamas and don't hand them over to us to be shot in the town square, they got a real problem. But the Saudis will take care of that. We don't have to do that. They're
yeah.
sitting right there, a little pimple on the end of the peninsula. But that's my belief. I believe it's just going to get worse. I don't think it's going to calm down at all. Because the Iranians don't give a shit. The mullahs are happy
Because
to go to heaven.
they're nut jobs
They're nut
like
jobs. And the
like
Iranian
Sinwar.
people are splendid. Some of my best friends from high school and college
So yeah,
today are Persian. They'll be delighted to have these assholes gone. Carter let the Ayatollah back in and took the Shah, and it was the exact wrong thing to do.
yeah,
Could we have persuaded him to let the secret police be a little bit nicer? Probably that would have been a better deal. It's certainly better than what they have now. They just
yeah. Well,
killed
it's one of those things.
166 people
Yeah,
for crimes against Islam this month alone.
yeah. Well, it's always one of those things where you could probably make the Shah and his successor over time more and more liberal, like Japan and Taiwan, and remember, people forget Taiwan and South Korea weren't really democracies 30 or 40 or
No,
50 years ago. And I remember all the South Korean democracy protesters in the late 80s, and
yeah,
now it's a democracy.
it's a
And so is
democracy.
Taiwan, and
Yep.
you can
And the
bring
current,
you can bring these countries along
yeah.
over
And but
time.
more importantly, you got to make it their decision. And I want to run this by you for your thoughts
Okay.
because my contention is the world is experiencing a never-ending conflict between Islamofascist death cultists, not Muslims, Islamist death cultists,
Yeah.
and the West, because when the French left Algeria, they said, have elections. They had an election, and the Islamist party won. And the West, UK, France, US, said no, and they canceled the election, thereby giving the Islamists not an excuse, the truth to say, see, these assholes don't actually believe we
Yeah.
should have the right to govern ourselves. They want us to govern ourselves the way they want us to govern ourselves. And they went back to being in the mountains. Like there's nothing more romantic, whether it's a Bible, a Quran, or a little red book and the Kalashnikov to be up in the hills fighting the man,
Yeah.
right? You get all the hot chicks. It sounds fun. You should have made them be responsible for picking up the garbage twice a week, for making sure the streetlights work, for
Yeah.
making sure that you should have let them win. And let's see how you govern if all you do is read from the Quran 7 hours a day. Go
Yeah.
ahead, give it a shot. See how it goes. But instead, we abrogated that election, and that led to decades of this shit because it's never ending. The French left to go ahead and have an
Yeah.
election. We didn't like the election, we canceled it. And that was a stupid move.
Yeah. Pretty dumb.
Pretty dumb. Do you
Like
think
I
that's
said, you can bring
as
people
important a
along.
hinge? Do you think that's as important a hinge for where we are now, or I'm just reading too much into it because I spent so
I
much time in
don't
the long term?
know. a whole lot about Algeria and the conflict. Um, I've sort of been, the Ayatollah taking power was probably the big one. Uh, I don't, sh and maybe I'm just still on a bit of a high. I don't quite share your pessimism about everything. Um,
War.
but the big factor since the end of the Cold War has certainly been radical Islam.
Yep.
Uh, but again, Arabs and Muslims in America just came out and voted for Trump. It's almost like they're normies.
Of course.
It's almost like I don't care about your rainbow trans flag stuff,
No.
I don't care about,
And
these
I'm
are Muslim.
offended by the idea that you think I believe Hamas did the right thing on
Yeah,
October 7th. Like, that's just offensive. That you think that I'm an
yeah,
Arab Muslim and I approve of that. That's offensive.
yeah.
Beyond offensive. It's crazy.
And by the way, dirty little secret, if you ever ask an Arab, nobody likes the Palestinians. Nobody in that world.
Like, the worst. The worst. Will ruin every place they go. It's the worst. Yep. And I'll let you go, but I think the one thing I was thinking about was it's a poisoned society, and with the UN's got to go. Like it's just a poisoned society. I've seen the workbooks for fourth grade math.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, I had 10 Jews. I killed 7 Jews. How many Jews do I have left? I mean, that's written down and published by the UN for fuck's sake.
Well,
Um, but my thought was at the end of World War II, the Allies, mainly tough American drill sergeants, ran re-education classes for German boys from 12 to 30, who sat in classrooms and were told why the Fuhrer was an asshole, why Nazism was a lie, and why, I'm so sorry, but your youth was wasted by a douchebag. But good news, you can pick yourself back up and
yeah,
become a proud European again. And those people who argued, that was great. They were brought out into the hall by a master sergeant, beat the living shit out of them until he couldn't stand up anymore, put him back in the seat, and they did that for a few years.
yeah.
And Germany
Well,
hasn't invaded anyone
yeah.
recently.
The great P.J. O'Rourke, rest his soul, he
Yes.
wrote a couple chapters about touring Ireland in the late 70s and early
Yes.
80s. And someone said and what a dank, dark, depressing
Awful.
place. And
Awful.
someone said to him, said, the key is getting the young people and just getting them the hell out of here for a while. Send them to America to
Right.
see it doesn't all have to be, you're killing each other over, you don't go to church and I don't go to mass every Sunday
Right.
and just slaughtering each other over
Yep.
and these it's not that we don't have a Catholic Protestant divide in America. We always have, but it's not worth firebombing the
No,
Miami show band
it's
over.
worth an occasional softball game.
Yeah, just get, and that's sort of what they did, and
Yep.
because at least in the East Coast, you would you'd run into young Irish people working a summer job at the beach to say,
Yep.
"Oh my God, what is it? That's the sun." You know, look, that's a
We
girl
call
in a
it the
bikini.
sun.
Yeah. There's two girls in in bikinis walking down the beach. They don't care if you're Irish or Protestant, and I bet you they'd like your long hair. Don't you see what
Exactly.
life can be?
That's exactly.
And you do that for the Palestinians, and
Yep.
suddenly you see that, and killing someone over the 1969
Oh.
Protestant riots, it just isn't doesn't seem like that much fun anymore.
No, what did he call? He's like the most photographic part of Hex Half Acre in Belfast. Like that
Yeah,
every cameraman went to is that one piece of broken wall with
yeah.
graffiti on it, and every stringer from the AP and Reuters who showed up took a picture of it.
Yeah, he said camouflage in the Irish countryside ought to be tan slacks, a button, a polo shirt, and a 9 iron. He said it's all. He said this country's so beautiful. What is wrong? What's
What's
wrong
wrong
with you
with you
people?
people? He was so great. I loved when he did that Holidays in Hell,
Yeah,
and when he when he wrote the key. I love this because I lived in Africa for a long time, sub-Saharan Africa. So the key to surviving the third world is you just have to abide by two rules. One, never run out of whiskey. Two, never run out of whiskey. Absolutely perfect. Oh well, we won.
we won.
We would, and now the
Uh,
hard work begins where we
yeah,
actually make the improvements. We show people that this is not just we want to win because we want to win.
Yeah.
There's a better way for this country to be governed. There's a better way for it to be managed, and we're gonna
Yeah.
work our hardest to put it in place. And we wish
And
everyone well.
don't govern thinking about the 2026 off-year elections. It doesn't
No,
matter.
just do the right thing.
Probably
This is
probably won't win anyway.
uh,
Don't worry about it.
doesn't matter. This is
Yeah.
where Immanuel Kant is always is by now. It takes a long time to really understand Kant's genius. When he said the only moral thing you can do is the a priori next right moral thing without trying to play chess with reality, do the next
Yeah.
right thing. If your neighbor's beating his cat, stop your neighbor from beating his cat. Don't
Yeah.
worry about the fact your neighbor outweighs you by 200 pounds as a black belt. Stop your neighbor from beating his cat.
Yeah.
Right? Just do
And
the
it's
right thing right now, always. And that is the best way to live your life. And we can do
I
that.
really think they can do a lot of good things in the next 2 years. It's Trump's party now. He doesn't have to fight McConnell and Ryan.
Nope.
Um,
Resounding victory.
it and it is. There's no question about it this time. I mean, I was just thinking, well, you know what this means for Israel? They don't have to worry about, like Trump's person said. Now Israel's going to end the war by winning it,
Yes.
and you don't have to worry about the Supreme Court anymore.
Nope. None of that
Like,
crap.
and I bet you it won't matter much in the long run. I bet you in 20 years, no one's going to care. It won't be such a big deal.
No.
Um,
He will go down in history, I think, if we do this next few years right, as a truly heroic, excellent president. The man has
yeah,
fought in ways that, like, I just would I don't know if I could have withstood it, even with his bank account.
yeah,
Four different, three states and a federal government trying to put me in prison all
yeah,
day, every day. That's a lot of that's an impressive ability to deal with that stress. That's not even the
yeah.
money. They're going
I
to take away my freedom.
Yeah, I like a lot of the people he has around him. Not that I think RFK Jr. should have a cabinet slot. I don't, but they should give him. He should be doing something. I don't know what it is. Whoever you have at state, make sure it's not a diplomat.
Yeah, I want to put RFK in charge of the CIA. I want him to get access to the files.
Yeah, yeah. They,
That's the job he gets.
you can't do worse.
Tell me about it. We can do an entire episode about the best public relations job in the universe is making the CIA look good. Really. And again, great people, patriots, working hard, but the fantasy spun around them like there's some superheroes. There are a lot of hardworking people doing grinding intelligence work, doing great stuff. But to watch the movies, ooh, that's a gap.
Yeah,
That's a gap. Good people, really good people, trying hard, patriots, doing their best,
yeah.
right?
There's a
But
guy on Substack, an author and a former soldier named I think it's Matt Farwell, who wrote a book about Bo Bergdahl and
oh,
his exchange. But he's also been chronicling. He's got something called the Hunt for Tom Clancy, and it's this occasional Substack where he talks about how Tom Clancy novels influence a whole generation like me, about how everything in the Defense Department works great and the CIA works
right,
great and everything. And
superheroes,
as
yes,
all his novels were he had all this access to information, intel, because they were using him. He was a psyop. I
right.
wouldn't have my job if it weren't for reading Red Storm Rising when I was 14 years old, right? And and this guy's like, yeah, Tom Clancy was a psyop. The CIA was using him. He's a cutout.
Of course, and I love Piper Perabo as much as the next middle-aged man, but and it's great watching her sprint around in a tight skirt in that series for a while. I mean, I'm showing my age for sure. She was what was when did that series end? Take 10 years ago, but
Yeah,
um, priceless. But anyway, we are glad that the agency is hiring supermodels to defend us.
yeah,
Uh, that we look forward to seeing the staffing choices in the Trump administration,
yeah,
and we hope that our leftist opponents calm down and realize that we're all trying to get this done together.
yeah. Okay, well,
Let it
great
run.
talking again.